This video is all about what I've come to call the Hermit Phase of Awakening. You might be in it right now. The Hermit Phase is a period of stagnation. It's a period of confusion. It's a period where all the old strategies no longer work. Nothing seems to fit. Life feels dull. You feel lost, confused, cut off from your spiritual nature. And you're wondering, why is this happening? Where did I go wrong? This is the Hermit Phase of Awakening. It can feel a lot like failure and stagnation. But in my experience, what it really is preparation. It's training. It's serving a very necessary function to help you come out the other side as an upgraded, more aligned, more connected version of yourself. And in this video, I'm going to break down the key indicators that you're going through this hermit phase. I'm going to also share with you some tips I've learned having gone through it multiple times, and also a sneak peek of what is to come. What does this result in? Where is this all heading? And I would also venture to guess that what I say at the end there is going to be nothing new, but rather confirm what your intuition's already telling you right now. Sign number one, isolation and stagnation. You might feel like your life is literally on hold. You might be desperately seeking, what is my next step? You might feel like whatever you've done in the past is no longer going to work. You're going through a period of reinventing yourself essentially, but it hasn't happened yet. You still don't know who you are. You have no idea where you're going. You have no idea why any of this is happening. And that's extremely uncomfortable. And you feel stagnant, like you want more than anything to get some type of sign, some glimmer of hope, something tangible to go on, some understanding of why you feel this way. But it doesn't come. And it drives you bananas. A lot of times during this phase, people are out of work and spending a lot of time alone. And on one hand, you might feel that. You might feel drawn to isolate. At the same time, that can cause one to be lonely. You can feel like you don't belong here. You can feel like no one really gets you. In fact, I told this story, we were running an event. That's why I'm adding this in, by the way, kind of randomly. I was editing the video this morning and I wanted to add this part in because it's so important. But at this event yesterday, I was talking about when I went through this, one of the times. It's happened several times. And I remember I was going through this very real spiritual awakening that I questioned the validity of it so much because I had no one in my life that was sharing my experiences. My wife was there, and God bless her, she would listen and hold space for me, but she, at that time anyway, wasn't experiencing it. This is way back in 2011. It's actually kind of an embarrassing story. Back in 2011, I thought that we are going to ascend in 2012. I thought literally come 2012, December 21st, the end of the Mayan calendar, I thought we were going to just sort of dissolve into spirit form and enter a completely new reality, completely separate and distinct from the previous one. I believed that. Now, at this time, I thought that on 11/11, so November 11th, 2011, at 11:11 a.m., I thought something was going to happen. A lot of people were saying it was going to happen. I thought that the skies were going to part and, the heavens would open and divine love would sort of rain down on the planet. And I believed that. And I remember I went to the beach. My wife dropped me off at the beach because I wanted to meditate and be at the beach for this glorious moment. And obviously nothing really happened. I found myself feeling, for one, like an idiot. I felt discouraged. And my wife picked me up and she was like, "How was it, babe?" And she could just tell. She was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And we were driving away. And as we were driving away, I was in the passenger seat because she picked me up. I saw out of the corner of my eye this sign that said psychic, what does it say? Psychic shop or something like that. And it was like this sign just called to me. It like winked at me. I felt this strong pull to go there, not knowing why. So I said, babe, pull the car over. We got to go back. Go to the psychic shop down the road there. And we did. And I walked in that shop, and that there was like a couple of women who were working there. And the moment I laid eyes, we connected eyes, I didn't have to say anything. I could tell. They were like me. They had this certain look in their eye, this understanding. And I knew without even communicating any of this that I was not alone. I was not the only one going through this. And that was, even though again, we never discussed this, it was a confirmation that I was desperately in need of. That's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. Because right now it might feel like you have nobody that understands you. And it's so hard not to question your experiences because they're so unusual, right? They're so different than anything you've gone through before. And when you have no one to sort of mirror that to you, you think you're crazy. You think you're just being kind of like a social, recluse. You start, shame kind of can kick in. And because of the nature of the hermit phase, it makes it almost impossible to like change and to do anything but just be there and stew in the lonely stagnation. So it's walking into that psychic shop was exactly what I needed to confirm what I already knew deep down, that what I'm experiencing is real. What we are experiencing does have a purpose. And when the timing is right, we will know exactly what that is. This phase of awakening serves many purposes. And we need the loneliness to find ourselves, to find out who we really are. We need the stagnation to evolve ourselves to where we are a match at a place where we can move forward, not in a desperate, hasty way, but in an aligned way, in an ideal way. Anyways, you're going to see the video change once again and share some other things about this hermit phase. One of the main signs is that you feel cut off from divinity. You feel like you're kind of on your own. You feel like maybe at one point you had this very welcomed sense of spiritual guidance. You can call it intuition. Some people have actual, like even mystical encounters with like other consciousnesses, spirit guides, dreams. There's different things that can synchronicity. You may have at one point been shown that life is magical. There really is a divine reality underneath all of this. But during this hermit phase, that all goes away and you can't find it anywhere. And not only that, but even like all areas of your life feel like the life force has been kind of depleted out of it. And you find that you're unable to enjoy the sunset. You're unable to really be present with the things in your life that used to give you joy and satisfaction. And there's this almost unsettling feeling that you did something wrong, like you've taken a wrong turn. Why, after all these growth spurts I've experienced, why do I feel more lost and cut off, less connected than ever before? Well, it's exactly like what St. John of the Cross says. It's quite the opposite. It's that what's happening is you're going through yet another major upgrade, and this is a temporary side effect of that fact. But it's very real. It's something that I just said and put words to, but your day-to-day, week-to-week, sometimes month-to-month experience of this prolonged feeling like cut off, it can be brutal because it's like you're yearning for something you know on some level exists, but it's not there. It can bring up even old wounds of being abandoned. It can lead to addiction. It can lead to doing things like almost out of desperation just to feel something, to escape this feeling of just disconnection. Some people revert to drinking and using drugs and escaping, numbing themselves out in some capacity. And it's because it's like this cruel combination of awareness, like God is real, like your own concept. There's some divine force out there. You felt it, you've been connected to it. And that's like the missing link to like life. And you've had it. It was in your hands and now it's gone. It's no longer the ignorance is bliss. You're awake, but suffering as a result. But the good news is, like anything in life, my friend, this too shall pass. This is just a phase. You'll adjust to the light just fine. And when you do, you will be seeing through new eyes. The light will be stronger within you. The guidance will come on in full force. And you will soon see exactly why everything had to happen the way it did. And you'll also see that the light never went anywhere. Just as on a cloudy day, the sun is not gone. It didn't die. It didn't disappear. It's just you can't see it. Another indicator is that you might find nothing really seems to be working in your life, in your career, in your living situation. And on one hand, you'll have this sense like you just know it's not quite time to know what to do. You'll have a sense that whatever is breaking down is meant to, and it'll be replaced by something else, and it's all going to be fine. You have like this knowing, but when it's actually happening, it's extremely difficult to bear. It's extremely difficult not to fall into the trap of negative thinking and fear-based thinking. And it's very easy to kind of spiral when you start looking at the facts, the external life. It can also just be like a tough time, a tough thing to endure that you don't understand right away. And reminds me of my wife. She was just telling me the other day, she remembers long ago we run these retreats in Costa Rica, these plant medicine retreats. And we had this one time, I don't know, 4 or 5 retreats ago, where someone just sort of randomly left. We've never had that happen, but someone just chose to leave, and they called their parents and told them that they were at like an ayahuasca, retreat. And then their parents flipped out and called the embassy. So we had these military officials come to our retreat center in Costa Rica, and it was very scary. We thought for a minute there that we were gonna have to like kind of cancel the retreat. We had like 35 guests there, and we still had one more night to drink. And the embassy showed up that morning, and were kind of giving us problems. And it was like a really like, I know there's worse things that can happen, but for us, like running this retreat, it seemed like this random, it was so unexpected because the retreats can be so magical and you feel so divinely supported. There's like such a presence of God at all of these retreats. So we were wondering, like, why is this happening? And my wife, she took it really hard because she always takes a lot of ownership at these retreats. She does all of the phone calls. She knows all the people. She's very, very connected to each individual. So she was concerned about the one person who left, but also that the whole retreat is in jeopardy. And I remember what she said is that she kept asking, why is this happening? Why? And then we ended up drinking that night and it was okay. But she brought this to the ayahuasca and she asked the medicine, she said, why did all this happen? And what she received was this sort of internal like dialogue that said, you don't need to understand why. You just need to accept. And what I found is that is the key to rolling with the dark times, the dark nights, the long, prolonged breakdown during the hermit phase. You might find yourself like my wife, wanting to know why? Why is this happening? What's to come of this? What did I do? What can I do? How to change this? How to control? All of this is resistance. All of this makes it worse. All of us just gets us worked up in our heads. There is a way to have peace in this, and is to relinquish the desire to understand God's plan for you. And instead, what you can do is accept, okay, life is getting pretty hard right now. Okay, it is what it is. What can I do in this moment? And a lot of times your answer will be, well, nothing. I just have to wait and see what happens because it doesn't feel right yet to force action. And the neat thing is, once you see these periods through, which you will, you have no other choice, obviously, you'll see there's not just one reason. There's actually usually a myriad of different, very wonderful benefits. For example, running retreats. This has played out for us many times. We've noticed, my team and I, that some retreats are just perfect, just beyond perfect, truly magical. In fact, I remember after running our first retreat in Sedona, I was driving back to Vegas where I lived at the time with my friend Josh. He was helping us. And we were like talking back and forth and kind of reflecting. And we were saying it felt like we were living in a different dimension. The whole period of the retreat just felt like genuinely divine and magical. And what we found though is some retreats are not like that at all. Some retreats, it's like I described earlier, just crazy unexpected challenges that just seem to be like inconvenient. Like, we got a retreat to run. Why is this happening? Why, I've had the cops called on me, doing breath work in a big Airbnb. The cops come, and I've had a lot of like really, really challenging, unexpected monkey wrenches thrown into the system. I could go on at length at the many crises that have been sort of thrown into my lap running retreats. But you know what they do is they make you stronger. They equip you with the ability to stay calm under pressure. I remember this one time I was about to do a live online workshop, as an example, for about 1,000 people. And I didn't have much to do. In fact, I was going to introduce a special guest we were having. But what I found is, like, 2 minutes before I was going to go on and greet these thousands of people, there were two people that reached out and said, "Hey, Vic, when are you going to bring me on?" And I had realized I had double booked. This one woman who has a kid and had to get childcare, it was her, and this other guy who had to get up super early because he was living in Hawaii. Both had to make kind of big arrangements to be on here, and I messed that up. And I realized that, and I had like maybe a minute to like figure out what to do and collect myself and then show up in front of 1,000 people, not flustered, because I felt like my heart was racing. I was panicking. It was crazy. But because I've been through so many challenging times, I was able to take a breath and know that, okay, I got to deal with this. And I was able to run the session, and it was okay. But you don't just have that unless you've been through some stuff. And these challenges, whatever's happening for you, it will give you that like cool, steady hand at life, that embodiment of that stoic, neutral presence, which is very good to have in this reality where life can surprise you. It also tends to align you with perfect timing. My wife always uses the analogy of trying to pick an unripe fruit from a branch. It takes force. Even if you do it, it's not ripe. You don't want to eat it. But a ripe fruit, it takes like the smallest touch just to kind of fall off. And then it's like perfect. That's kind of the idea. You're almost put in a situation during this hermit phase where even if you try to control things and stuff, you run into so much resistance. You quickly realize when this is just not the time. This is just not the time. This is just not the time. But trust me, when it is time, you will know it. And that's the third indicator. Receiving unconventional ideas. And these unconventional ideas oftentimes carry a lot, like an energetic punch to them. They kind of, at least temporarily, remind you of what it feels like to be connected. But sometimes they can be so unconventional, it just doesn't make sense. I remember when I was going through this years ago, nothing was working. My businesses were failing. I was truly struggling. In fact, my wife and I were talking about it today. She said, that was the most broken I've ever seen you, she said. And I was, because I was going through all the stuff I said. I felt abandoned by God. I felt abandoned by the cosmos. I felt like I was just failing at life. The uncertainty was just weighing on me like a wet blanket. And it was like one thing after the other. And around that time, actually, my dog was hit by a car. We don't know how he died, but something happened and he died randomly. And it was just like a really, really, really hard, dark time. I remember we couldn't pay our rent. We were sliding into credit card debt, wondering like, why is this happening? What the hell did we do wrong? Why is it turned on us so intensely? And then there was just one day we were just sitting on the couch and we had this random idea that we could like move into a travel trailer, like an RV. It's an unconventional idea. We were a family of 5, 3 kids, a dog and a cat, basically. And yet that was like this idea just sort of like out of the blue, just sort of floated into our brains. And as my wife and I were discussing it on the couch that day, it just felt like this is it. We just knew this is the move. I know it's crazy. People are going to think we're nuts, but this is the move. And we did it. We sold our house. We moved into the travel trailer. A month later, we were cruising towards California. My entire family in a Suburban with this little travel trailer in the back, our pets and everything. And here I am today. You know, that was kind of like the eye of the needle, you might say, that trip to California. And then everything expanded. Everything improved. Everything upgraded. Not just my life circumstance, which did upgrade beyond what I ever would have imagined, but also that reconnection with spirit was back. The feeling of being where I was meant to be. And just having that feeling once again, regardless of where it is. We were in a travel trailer, but we had that feeling again. Where for the longest time leading up to that, during this hermit phase, there was this knowing that we're not where we're meant to be. But we don't know where that is. How frustrating. You felt lost for like a year. But then we reconnected. But it didn't just happen. Many people I've talked to some people who are in the hermit phase for like a decade. And what I've noticed is many of them are literally just waiting. They're just waiting for something to like be handed to them like tangibly. When a lot of times God has been helping them with ideas, but they're not putting it into action. They're not putting it into practice. They're held back by fear or something along those lines. It's like you have a dozen life rafts all around you, but you're waiting for one to float right in arm's reach. You might have to swim to that life raft, but you know what? Even that's a blessing. In fact, I remember we had this idea, right, to move into an RV, and I'll never forget what it was like driving that travel trailer from Michigan in the wintertime to all the way to California. It's a long drive. And we didn't anticipate, though we should have, going through the mountains with snowstorms. And I remember we were like 2/3 of the way there, and I was going through, I believe, like New Mexico and Arizona area. And we were in the mountains. It was nighttime, and there was a horrible blizzard that was going to last for days. And there was nowhere to go. We couldn't go back because it kind of came up from behind us and was worse. Going forward, we also couldn't stop because you can't really pull off. RVs are not meant to be in that type of climate. We had no choice but to keep going. And I'll never forget how I felt driving the RV. I was so mad at myself for selling my house, quitting my jobs, putting my family's lives at risk, going up and down these dangerous, icy, snowy mountains, seeing vehicles spun off left and right, knowing that I did this and there's no way out but through. I remember during that drive, I was thinking like once again, why is this happening? Now I was really pissed off because I felt like I was being guided, and here I felt like I was like almost tricked into this even worse situation. And I was like, I was like losing my mind, honestly. It was like, I was like losing my shit. In fact, at one point, kind of a funny little side note, during that drive, my middle son, Lucas, he had this Nerf gun and he shot me in the back of the head with his Nerf gun. And I was like, ah! Anyways, the point is, we made it to California. Ironically, we made it just in time. We made it just in time for the sunset. And there's this beautiful scene with me and my kids standing on the sand, watching the sunset with our arms up in the air like this. And though I wouldn't want to repeat that whole situation, I can now see why it all had to play out that way. And I can appreciate what I learned from that. That drive, that whole hermit phase, dark night journey, it gave me something that I could never have gotten in a book. It's not something anyone can give you. It's something you like cultivate within yourself. There's that recognition that I did this, I survived this. There's this inner calm that you only get having endured such a feat. And this hermit phase, and especially the steps you will be guided to take but must take yourself to get out of the hermit phase, it's going to give you more than that beautiful sunset in San Diego, which they are amazing in San Diego. If you live there, you know. It's going to give you a real recognition of your power. The person you grow into, you uncover along the journey is far more special than the outcome, which also is pretty groovy. Because usually what comes out of this phase is a lovely period of prosperity, abundance, happiness, success, expansion, almost like awe, like, I can't believe that all just happened. Can't believe the turnaround. It's almost like, I can see why it has to sort of be forced upon us because it's not something, I don't know if any of us have it in us to kind of choose that type of path, but it happens. That's the cool thing. It just happens sometimes. And if you're watching this video, what I just said here hopefully reminded you of what you're already aware of on the inside, that everything is happening for a reason.